Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Kendall Rawls with the International Succession Planning Association, and Joe Girard with Change, Grow, Achieve is joining us, who is a sales go-to-market marketing coach.
Sales coach,
So
not marketing.
sales coach. Sorry, my bad.
Marketing is those are cats. We're dogs, man.
All right. Well, go-to-market, that's all
Yeah,
part of the
yeah,
strategy. All
yeah.
right, there we go. There we go.
All right.
And today we are talking about how not just to overcome objections, but how to prevent them. So as we're getting going and kind of setting the stage for our discussion, if you have any common objections that you're facing or ones that you get stressed over and you're like, oh God, if they ask this question, I don't know how to overcome it, please put those in the chat. We want this to be interactive. This is your time, so please be as specific and engage in the chat as much as possible so we can achieve your goals. And just a little message from our sponsor. This is coming to you through the International Succession Planning Association, and ISPA is geared towards providing cutting edge tools, resources, insights to help you grow your advisory practice.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to pitch back over to Mr. Joe Girard.
And I catch it. So the one of the things we talked about is like, I'm a sales coach. I do consulting. I help people with this stuff. And when we look at what's going on with the ISPA and a lot of service providers, I think a lot of people have a challenge with the idea of objections and sales tactics and techniques. I really want you to sort of sit and let this sink in today, that this is just really about humanizing the process. You're going to run into resistance in all sorts of forms, whether it's your family, your spouse, your dog, you get resistance all the time. And, we can look at an objection to say, I don't want to tell people they're wrong. I don't want to manipulate. I want to do this stuff. I don't want to do that salesy stuff. You see my saying, don't be a salesy weirdo. I really want you to come at this from the lens of service, from buying, from if we don't handle this properly, and you absolutely know the person you're talking to can benefit from your services and you can't get them to take action, then I would say shame on me if I can't do that. So handling objections, preventing resistance, there's a lot of psychology in how we do things. And so when we put this framework together, I want you to think in the moment, in the wild, while you're dealing with objections and resistance from your clients, is there a better way? That's kind of the theme of today. I'm going to share my screen. And again, as Kendall said, please share common objections or things that you run up against that sometimes it's hard. It's like walking through quicksand. Let's do this. So you guys can see my screen, hopefully. Bing, bong, boom. Let's go. So, let's go. So really the key is this is reducing resistance. I'm going to go through some stuff here with you. Boom, boom, boom. So ISPA, Kendall mentioned this. It's about impact growth. Let's go. Today, we're going to talk 4 universal objections. Really, you can look at tons of different ones, but there's really only 4. How to prevent objections, some psychology stuff. That's where I get real nerdy. Objection busting framework. And we've got some new programs and resources we're going to share with you guys at the end. So stay tuned. We're going to give you free stuff. Really, there's 4. So when I look at stuff like I do training, you can throw 100 different objections at us, but there's really only 4. The first one is I got no money. And no money just means they haven't budgeted. They don't see the ROI, but there's always money. So in the absence of, like, if price was the only issue, then you could compete on price. You could talk about price, but price is never the only thing. It's always about value. If they don't see how this is and how it's going to work for them, then of course money's an objection. I've never gone, and maybe Kendall, if you have, let me know. I've never talked to somebody that says, oh man, thank God you're here because I just have all this money sitting here and I was wondering what to spend it on. And this is exactly what I was hoping to spend it on. So they're not really thinking about that. And also, if they have been thinking about that, you might actually be too late in the process. So your job is really to understand what money is connected to, what value it's connected to, rather than thinking about how do we budget for this. I think a lot of times we make decisions from our own wallet. The other one is no urgency. The other part is they don't feel the pressure. They don't feel a desire to change. They don't understand what it is, and you're not showing enough power in your offer. The third one is no need. It's probably more like a lack of awareness. Sometimes we've run into this a lot of times as people say, here, this is what I need, but it's really just a want that's disguised. So you have to understand what that's connected to. What's the need really connected? So in your conversations, you really got to pay attention to what they're saying, because sometimes, especially when you look at the succession matrix, they say, hey, I need help with this thing. but really that's just a want. That's something that is the symptom that they're seeing, but it's really connected to the other side of the matrix, which is this is where the need is. You have to create that need. We're going to show you how to do that. The last one is no trust. Now, this is usually an unspoken one, but you can feel it. Your job is really through your personal brand, through your questions, through your ability to connect, and using stories, using insights, showing how this can resonate. This is for them. And I always say, like in my calls, what I try and do is at the end, I really want them to go, huh, and go like, this feels different. If it can feel different, you can build trust. Everything starts from there. So really also part of this week, we're going to showcase you guys pre-selling frameworks is a big way to do this. I know my pre-selling framework, I have a YouTube channel. By the time people get to me, they've already sort of experienced what it's like with me. They see the studio, they see, and they're like, wow, it's really you. I'm in a much better position with resources I've sent them, downloads, guides, something I've already helped them with. So they're ready to buy. They're ready to have a conversation, and I don't have to try and sell to them. Does that make sense, guys? Let's put up your hands, say yes if it does, and talk to us how this is going to apply. Kendall, what do you think right there so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we, with a consulting firm that I also work with, there was a conversation a couple of weeks ago about fees, and are fees too high? Are they too low? How many times someone pushes back because of our fees? And at the end of it, the discussion was, it's not our fees, it's that if they're bringing up no money, then we have not done a great job in describing the value of who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
And the no money, I think in some ways, it's just the easy way to get out of something for them that feels uncomfortable. So it's a good sign to say, okay, how do I need to reframe this in order to make it more impactful?
Totally. And Ryan's got a good question here. And we're going to get into this too. The common objection, we only need X. That's, that's what we want to talk about. But really, you're going to help them solve a bunch of stuff. So really, we talked about, I think, our last webinar, we want to lead them to our offer, not with our offer. And so we're going to talk about that in a couple slides here, is really understanding how we can create need and anticipate need and being able to lead them to that value without saying, well, I understand you want this, but here's what I want to give you. That's where you're dead in the water, right? So I gotta click on push water rookie. Here we go. So here's one thing. If you've ever heard, like, you've ever done sales training, you might have heard these three things: probing, handling objections, and closing. And Kendall, I don't know if I've ever told you this. Do you know when that was invented?
I don't. Please tell us.
1925. There was a guy named E.K. Strong. He's also the guy that invented the AIDA method. And what was it called? The Theories of Selling in the Journal of Applied Psychology. He was looking at sales techniques, and he put this out there. From that time, sales training has been about probing, handling objections, closing. And I'll tell you, nobody likes to be probed. I mean, depends. But also handling objections and closing, this is really about how do we take what they're doing and manipulate it so we can win. So if we're doing that, I mean, this is just an old school thing, and people are, you can tell people are not cool with you trying to handle their objections. If you're handling objections, you're too late. That's what we're doing. So today we're talking the psychology of it, which is reducing resistance. And the psychology of it, there's two kinds of resistance we run into. The first resistance is called knee-jerk, and it's reactance. So that's where people right away will say, no, it's not for me. I can't afford it. It's not this, it's not that. And you run into that everywhere. In your day-to-day, everywhere you go, people have like that spidey sense that they don't want this. They've got an experience before. It's a visceral reaction. It's not necessarily grounded in truth. It's just their reaction because it's a response from the reptilian brain to say, I want to keep myself safe. The other kind of resistance is called anticipated future regret. And there's two kinds. One is if I do this, I'm going to regret it. The second one is if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it. And the goal is there's a sales moment. That's what's called sales moment between those two. Is they go, I don't know if I don't think I should do this. I'm going to regret that. And then they start to go, and it's your job to move them right there to say, hold on a sec. Maybe I should. I watched a video yesterday, some guy on, I think, Instagram, and he said, if you take action on this today, I'll give you this price. It's, $2,500 for the thing. And then he shut up, and it was like uncomfortably quiet. He just was quiet. And you could hear the guy tapping. And then he went, hello? He's like, no, I'm still here. He's like, and then he said, F it, let's do it. And I knew that's exactly what this guy's going to say. That's because the longer it goes, the more visceral that response is, because he's really being like, if he's going from, no, I don't think I can do this. I got to talk to my wife. I got to do this and this. But then he went, man, I should do this because I always back out. I always do this. You know what? Let's go. And that's what we're talking about, is that anticipated future regret. And there's a moment that you can do. So your job, all of this stuff with objection prevention, is to create the ideal environment. So somebody does that. They say, F it, let's move forward. There's three. So I'm going to answer your question here, Ryan, too. The three types of need is pre-existing. That's where they say, hey, can I talk to you about how we could buy this? That's why I always say, customers are about 60% of the buying journey before they engage with us. If we're only dealing with them then, this is usually what we have to solve for. We say, yeah, we have that. We can solve that. This is how much. They say, cool, I'm shopping around. I just want to get a price. And that's where you do RFPs and you're competing on price and you're getting a lot of competition. The next one is through your conversation, we want to expand that need and say, hey, this typically is what happens, but we also maybe want to look at this and this, and it's closely connected to what it is. It's usually an upsell, a cross-sell that they understand. But ideally, through, especially as a service provider and looking at the matrix, there's stuff that they never thought of. This is where we want to say, hey, based on what you're telling me, this is connected to this in this way and this way. And you can show them the interconnection and go, because of that, that's what's affecting. These people are involved. These are the other costs that happen. This is the time it takes. This is what a pain in the butt it is for you. And, typically what we see there is it goes like this. That's why we do these things. Something that they might have never thought of that positions you as a different type of value, a different type of provider. And that's where the magic happens, is where you create need they never thought of. If you're solving problems they've already thought of, your price point's got to be lower. If you want to charge more, you want to have more non-competitive deals, higher conversions, faster sales cycles, higher revenue, you need to get good at this. Does that answer your question, Mr. Ryan? Oh, I popped the button. I'm just stressed out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anticipated need, the implication and needs payoff questions are really great to use in creating that additional value and not selling, but letting them know that you actually need X, Y, and Z versus just A.
Yeah, it's been so. That's what Kendall's referring to. The I remember who you are, but that's we've got stuff on the asking questions, the implication, need payoff. That's a big thing. It's just really understanding the level of what do you say? What's the phrase you use about questions?
The person with the highest quality questions controls the conversation.
Perfect. And so that's what this is a lot about, is the better you are at asking questions, the better you are at cognitively reframing your customer, the more they start to think differently about themselves. That's how they think differently about you. So that's a big key. This is one I train a lot on. It's something that I invented primarily because I'm lazy. When I'm selling, I don't want to do stuff more than once. And I found that, I'm running into challenges. And so there's three ways that we can deal with it. We can fix it, we can find a solution, or we can prevent it, right? And if we fix it, this is typically, I'll just break it out here. This is where I say, an amateur. So I'll give you an example. I worked at a college and people would come in, they want to go to school. They have a challenge with daycare. And we'd always go, oh man, this is another daycare challenge. So I would react, I'd be emotional, and I'd say, okay, well, that sucks, you need daycare. So let's think, what could we do? And we work through that problem. And we get good at helping them, and we just have to control our emotions because it's tough to deal with. The more you do it, you go, you know what? That's a pretty common thing I deal with. So when that happens, here's what I'm going to do. So you get really good at professionally providing an answer and helping them solve that problem on the fly. But that's where most people stop, because they go, I just have my common answers, and that's where you get really busy doing this stuff all the time. When they say this, I say this. If you really think about anything in your business, every part of your business, when stuff happens, is there something we could have done back here that would have stopped this from happening? It actually put us in a better position. So for example, daycare, I went, okay, well, let me contact all the daycares in my neighborhood, find out who's got positions open, make a list, have my strategic network all ready to go. Somebody comes in like, perfect. We deal with this all the time. Here's what we can do. I've got an opening here. How old is your kid? Here's what we're going to do. And all I'm trying to do is remove this barrier for them so we can focus on what we're doing. And it's not manipulation, it's actually service. And so this is where you go, I'm going to initiate and provide answers for this, and it positions you as an expert in your business. When you're running into this resistance, you're running into these challenges, what could you have created, built, so that you don't have to sell? That's why pre-selling framework, if I have a YouTube channel, I have proof, I have a little bit of case studies, like a testimonial, social proof. When they get to me, the resistance is lower. I can do whatever I want because they already know there's a trust that's innately there. If I start and they go, hey, so I heard you got services. What do you got? What are you selling me? That's a real tough place to start from, right? Or cold market. Kendall, thoughts? Let's roll.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think working to apply this to professional services, oftentimes it's, at least from a consulting succession planning perspective, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, I'm working with my attorney to deal with, this is a good question for you, Joe. Working with my attorney, I first want to address my estate planning, and then I'll get to you guys. However, from the holistic perspective of succession planning, what it makes sense is to say, okay, well, if you're working with your estate planning attorney, how would you, Joe, position, how can we get started now? Because that's a great thing that you're doing. However, you may want to wait because we may uncover some things that the estate planning attorney may need to implement. So how would you reframe that and help make that more of a winning conversation for someone dealing with that objection?
So if they say we want to wait, is that what's the
Yeah, something that's common that happens is I've been referred to you from a succession planning perspective.
Yeah.
However, I'm currently working with my estate on my estate plan with our attorney. Once we're done with that, then I'll come back and work with you. However, it really should be a yes and, because the estate planning attorney may not be uncovering a lot of the critical things that need to be integrated into that process. So how would you handle that?
Yeah. So that one is, you really want to sort of, with that, you'd sort of tend to that. You say, yeah, that's a pretty good approach. A couple things that I look at, there's some ways that we've done it in the past, and I'll show you some options on how this might work. It really depends on your timeline and what you're trying to accomplish. For example, so I would use a story. For example, I had a client that was doing something like that. And, often we think about these projects in sequence, but there's ways to do it in parallel, just depending on your time, depending on who's involved, the resources, and really make it so that what they're thinking about is already a good answer. It's an option. Not saying it's wrong. It's just something they've looked at, but they might not have seen other options. And you tell them an example. So one of the ways you could look at it is, if your time, like, let's talk about your timelines. What are you trying to accomplish in this? And what time of year is your business work and all this? Okay, so it sounds like you need to go from here to here, and the service that we're going to help you with looks like this. I also think that if we started on that now, we could put some stuff in place so that by the time you were thinking of doing this, you're already at this phase. But that would mean you'd have to do these things. So you might want to front load your efforts in this first phase so that you're in this place, and you start to get them to think in phases and options, not they're right or wrong, but that's where your insight as a service provider, helping them understand checklists, timelines, sort of evaluation. I never want to tell somebody what they're doing is wrong. Usually I'm right, but right. But I would say, let's look at it like, and now you're, instead of me versus you, I want to bring them around this side of the desk and say it's me and you versus this problem. And that's where, I'm not trying to handle their objections and convince them differently. I think through the collaborative conversation, if we both agree that the choice they made was the best one, then do it. But there might be a chance there's an option that we both like. And that's all we're doing. If I don't see the solution that I have, I'm like, nah, I think you're right the first time. That's a great answer too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That answer that? Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ooh, man. All right, let's look. So yeah, questions help them getting cognitively frame the problem. I always say this, there's two pivots in any conversation. There's one, we miss an opportunity to ask a question. We're too busy sharing stuff. We're too busy. They say something, we go, yeah. And then we go here, blah, blah, we go further. They say something, and it might be a hidden objection. It might be a hidden stall. It might be something that they're really stressed about that they just kind of mentioned. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the opportunity to say, hey, you mentioned this. Let me ask you a question about that. You said this and said this. Is this happening? So when that happens, what happens here? Who's involved? Oh, that sounds like this. And you go deeper, and you might find exactly where you need to go. Because often if you get to the end of a conversation and they're like, okay, let me think about it, we'll go like this, and they haven't told you the thing that's really bothering them, you're going to lose that deal every day. The other thing that changes, I listen to sales calls all the time, and I catch myself doing it, is information shared. It might be the best information you ever shared, but it could be at the wrong time. I call it the love triangle. It's between me, them, and the information. Too much information might make it so that they focus on the wrong stuff. Really about building trust. If you share the wrong information, or if you share a bunch of information, you haven't built the trust. They're going to love that information. They're going to take it back, and that's going to be their side girl, and they're going to deal with that information on their own, and they probably won't choose you because there's not enough value in that. And I'll give you an example. Kendall is my awesome guinea pig. Was it last week? We talked about, we want to find out about something. We want to build something. I'm like, why don't we reach out and find out from existing people we've talked to that information? And the key to that message was less is more. We didn't share any information about what we were asking them to talk about. We just said, here's something, we're working on this project. We need some insights from you. We're going to be meeting with the rest of the team. When's a good time for us to talk? And her conversion rate was through the roof, and all it counted was she took action, didn't share a ton of information, didn't open up room for resistance, and they were curious, they were excited, they were wanting to help, there was trust involved, the language was very conversational, and Kendall killed it. Great conversions, great example. Now,
thanks, Joe.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into this. There's some stories I want to do because I want to rip through some of this information, but just know there's a tree and we'll talk about it later. This is the other one because I want to get to this stuff. There is a big difference between stalls and objections. Kendall, do you know the difference? I gave you the slides.
I do.
Cool, and you're right. So the stalls, basically stalls are is you got to be careful if you're dealing with a stall or objection. A stall is really, they're saying, you know, I gotta think about it. You know, it's not a good time. That might be closer to an objection, but delayed decision. You know, I'm thinking about this, and I know we talked about this, but let me think about it for a couple of weeks and come back to you. You know, non-committal. You know, maybe later next month. Hesitation. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's good. And then non-specific feedback. You say, hey, how about the budget? They're like, yeah, we probably have the money. They'll probably be into it. And if you're allowing them to do this stuff, you might be seeing that no need, that no trust, that no money, no, but like all that kind of stuff. That's all hidden in the stall. But if you're not careful, those could be masked objections. So how you handle that's gonna be important. We're gonna talk about that. Objections. I really tried to figure out the right font and flow for this in the glow. I think that looks cool. Specific concerns. That's what we want to know. Clearly stated reasons. So part of like the spin selling framework is you want to see if there's something they say, we want to dig deeper and find out the implication of that so we can lead to a non-specific objection to a specific objection. We want to get there. We want to know specifically on an issue that we're talking about, and we want to make sure there's a stance on something. They're either saying no or yes to something, that we're getting direct feedback, that we're intending to resolve or clarify. That's where you come in. And also, and we're going to send this out to you guys, but then they're more likely to indicate interest. So when they tell you an objection, objections are really just opportunities, because if they're telling you specifically, I don't think I can do this because of this, you can handle that. If you get off a call with somebody and you're dealing with a stall, you might be missing the absolute opportunity to ask that question. And you can't ask that question over email where they say, it's not a good time for us. You say, why not? You'll never get a response on that, right? Well, hey, just why don't we set up another call and talk about it? Like, yeah, we're busy. And the more you do that, the more you're just dead in the water. So you have to be really cautious that you're clear on if it's a stall. If they say, we just really need time, and go through it, say, cool. And you dig into that. We also talked about this. They say, we just do need that time. Okay. So if you have that time, does that mean this, right? So when we look at this, here's how we're going to handle stalls. We are going to acknowledge, and you know what? I didn't even realize I put the word probe in there, but this is a different kind of probe. It's a big decision. Can you just make sure, just so I'm clear, can you make sure that you can tell me this stuff? Create a sense of urgency. No, I totally understand what's going on. I just don't want to lose momentum. I know you said that you're interested in this. Can we just walk through anything else? You want to make sure that we're clear on that. So I know that this is just a timing issue, right? Use a commitment clause. I want to make sure it's the right decision. If we address that thing, does that mean that we're in a better position? We want to move forward. You can also do, reset specific steps. Cool. So it sounds like you need to take some time on this. Based on what we said, I think our next step is this. Does that sound right for you? Cool. Well, then let's do this, right? And acknowledge the decision-making process. That's a big one too. It sounds like you said that idea of, whether they're going to do this or that. That's the same thing. It sounds like that's a good plan for you. Let's just review, make sure that makes sense. So I'm clear. I always put it back on me. I'm like, sometimes I don't get stuff. So let me just make sure I get what you're saying. Right. Sometimes I can be dumb. So then they go, oh, okay, let me help you understand. Oh, thank you so much. Right. Then we use scarcity. I just, we're doing this right now. Actually, somebody on the webinar, we're doing some projects. One of the things that we're looking at, there's timelines for getting grants and funding. So we're looking at, okay, hey, just so you know, and we talked the other day about pipeline management. We've got a huge pipeline. I said, share your pipeline with your customers. Say, hey, we've got all this stuff going right now. Here's a picture of the pipeline. I just want to make sure that this is important to you so I can make sure I have you in the right spot depending on priority. If it's not a priority right now, I'm happy to just move you to next month. And people, when they know they have something like a spot in your pipeline, are much more likely to say, well, no, I want to stay there. What's it going to take for me to get there? I just need a couple days. So it used to be 2 weeks. Now it's a couple days. It's a way to handle a stall appropriately. What do you think, Kendall, on that?
So on point, I think, well, common and professional services and consulting is that it can feel esoteric to the business owner or whoever's asking for this help. Like there's no tangible thing. And so it is hard. Commonly it's all these stalls happen. And so to know what language to put around it to make it more specific. And then, as you said, we're a partner, we're partnering up against how to address this problem. And oftentimes without knowing the best way to address the stall, you kind of feel like you're against you're not in a
Yeah.
partnership role. So this is excellent for creating that conversational and relationship, because that's what's really critical in consulting and advisory services.
Totally, and that's I think you nailed it on the head there. Is that sometimes we run up against the resistance, and we don't want to sell against something they said no to. It feels like salesy. But if you go, okay, I know they're trying to evaluate this decision, and sometimes they need help understanding what their options are. So if we leave, so it's kind of like, how dare we leave them with this decision they're not clear how to solve.
Right.
That's mean of us. This process is to help be better for them, especially if you're dealing with, let's say, the succession matrix, you're dealing with strategic partner network, and they have a large company, they're dealing with family, they got mental health issues, right? There's so much complexity, especially in a high level decision, like $100,000 consulting deal or a services deal, you're trying to do 10 grand a month. It's not like, hey, here's what it is. Do you want 32 gigs of RAM or 16? Oh, well, I could do. It's not that. It's complex. The ability that you have to navigate the complexity, especially with the experience, best practices with your clients, shame on you if you don't help them evaluate ways to move forward. What are your goals? What's the reality? What are your options you're considering? Let's look at some options. Cool. Sounds like you want to do this. That makes the most sense. We both agree. Let's do this. Right?
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Is help
If
them
you kind of, if you take on maybe the mentality of the cruise director and helping them solve this problem, then you're guiding, you're shepherding, you're providing insight versus feeling like you're selling and it's this competition.
And you can walk in, good morning, Carnival Cruises, right?
That's right.
So, handling objections. Again, I don't like the word handling, but that's the way I put it. I think we can prevent. So we can ask for ask for details. So you know what? I'm just curious what this is. I actually have I think I call it a 2-question close at the end of a conversation. It's just really gentle. Like, so it sounds like, you want to do something about this problem. Is that right? Like you really want to solve this. They go, yeah. Now, am I the right person to solve that for you, do you think? If they say no to the first one, we say, cool, let's make sure we understand this problem, because I think it's something you need to address, right? I have no, whether we work together or not, I just want to help you understand, do we want to do something? If they say, yeah, I really need to do something now, cool. Am I the right person? Are we the right people to help you? If they stumble on that, then you can address it. Your job is really to understand where the objection is. Sometimes people go, yeah, you know what? I don't think our team's going to like it. But is it that the team's not going to like it, or they don't like it? I don't know if that's true. Right? Sometimes sometimes they tell you stuff to make you feel better, right? They don't want to hurt your feelings. So we got to be really careful what that really is, right? Sometimes it's like, they don't think they can do it, or they don't think you can do it. Those are usually some of the challenges, right? Clarify misunderstanding. It sounds like this is what's happening. That's a concern. I think maybe we should sort of look at what we're doing to maybe address that, because I think that we can solve that. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I wasn't clear enough on my side, right? Present evidence. I actually had somebody that was dealing with that, and what they did was this. And I know there's like a feel, felt, found kind of, I don't like that approach because people can smell that. Anytime you use a tactic that people have heard before, that spidey sense tingles, right? But we found that people that were dealing with this, and one of the things that happened was this. Does that sound like what you're dealing with? And they go, yeah, I might do that, right? Ask insightful questions. A big thing we talk about is building insights, really understanding their business kind of in a different way than they are, understanding insights, understanding complexity, interconnected things. That's why the succession matrix is so cool, because if you are going to go deal with somebody here, just find a way to ask an insightful question about something that they probably never thought about, that anticipated need. And if we look at drawing that thread between opposite areas of the matrix, you're going to kill it, man. When we talk about this objection, often it's about this. But we find that that is connected to these things. And does that make sense? And we take them on a bit of a journey, and then we want to isolate that objection. So, it sounds like we're doing all this. Now, in my mind, I think that if we just solve this, we can do this. Is that right? Now you've isolated the objection. Now move forward. So if that's solved, you want to get going, right? That's really a way to just get your language, because if you get off a call and there are question marks, your conversion rates, your pipeline is just full of wants for you, right? And that's why we, and again, going back to what we talked about as a service provider, you don't want to feel like you're selling. Get really good at making sure that you're clear and you have a purpose, you have a next step, it's agreed upon, you know what's going on, even if that next step is don't call me again. Really get good at understanding where you're at and how you're going to do stuff. Kendall, yeah, you good?
Yep, absolutely. And I just asked in the chat, for those of you who are on the call, could you please put your I guess what background you come from, if you're a CPA, wealth manager, financial planner, attorney, because then we can really tailor some of these examples to you guys.
And also give me a yes or no if this is applicable to you. If you say no, I'll switch it up. If you don't say anything, I'm just gonna keep rambling. Here we go. So this one, we talk about this. There's a technique in like improv and acting. Say, yes, and. I see a lot of times objections come with, we're trying to figure out how to say, well, but let me tell you this. What we should say is if somebody says something to you, go, yeah, that makes sense. I can see how you're dealing with that, and I think maybe we should discuss this, or I think that's connected to this. Your job is to really take them on a bit of a journey, and you're supporting them because whatever they're deciding on, there's a reason. You have to understand that reason. So ways to do it. I'm going to show you some resources in a sec. That's why we talk fix, find, prevent. Look for opportunities to, as a team, organization, preemptively build your capabilities to deal with objections. So I would look at, I always say, what are the 10 questions your customers always ask? Write those down. But then go, what are the 10 questions they don't ask, but they should? Like, we want to think about when you're in that conversation with your ideal clients that you could do your best work, what is that stuff you guys get into? And you remember the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yep.
And you remember what he did at the end of the rap battle? I was talking about this.
Killed it.
Yeah, he killed it. What did he do? What did he do? He said, I'll go first. And then he sang about all the stuff. He's like, yeah, my mom's in a trailer park and this guy was with my girlfriend and this was on drugs and this guy shot himself. What else are you going to say about me? And the guy froze. So I call it an 8 Mile opening when we're doing sales is go, okay, talk about the stuff that that they're probably going to deal with and nip that in the bud, because if they get to the point where they share an objection and you're dealing with an objection, if somebody says no, psychologically, they're more likely to stick with that no, even if they change their mind, because they don't want to change their mind. So if you don't get the no in the first place, you're in a way better position. So the prevention of those objections is really key. Questions, again, we talk about this. So we've got a document we're going to share, really, use that cause and effect language, implication questions like Kendall mentioned, lead away. Don't talk. I have clients right now, sales reps, that are so focused on products and details. They're sending all this stuff. I'm like, you're making it so that you're sending somebody something. You're saying, this is the thing, and they have to decide on the thing. You need to help them decide on the conversation before you get there, because there's so much, especially with the complexity of a service provider. We got to be careful we don't say that. Help them see the story, the impact, the weight of the problem, the case studies, the testimonials, the stories, because again, it's not sales tactics. It's really helping them. If you imagine you've got a potential client that's out there and they put up their hand and say, hey, I'm wondering if you can help me with this. There is so much that has gone into them asking for that thing. If you just say, sure, we can do this, you are being a jerk to your market, right? You should go, hey, you know what? That's a big decision a lot of people I've dealt with have, and we've had this conversation a lot, and I'm happy to share how those conversations have gone, what's happened, so that you're in the best position possible. If it makes sense to work together, I'll tell you. If it doesn't, I'll tell you. And you just really, that's your job. That's what you should be looking at. And the more you do that, the more they're calling you before they call anybody else. And before they even talk about the decision, say, we're thinking about even having this discussion with our team. Can I talk to you first? Right? That's the key. And then we look at priming. The power of priming psychologically is just seeding things in the conversation so that they're accepting truths before they're wrong. So we just are trying to avoid that knee-jerk reaction by saying, hey, so we built Kendall's been really like cool lately. She's putting this into a document, a resource where we're thinking about in your market, and we're going to dig deeper. I do this with like even the roles of the people you deal with. What's the stuff they're probably going to object to? How do we build into our conversation early that negates or invalidates some assumptions they might be making, so that we're in a better position to move them forward? Yeah.
Excellent. We got a question in the chat.
Oh, questions. What
Yeah,
if
man.
they need to discuss with someone else first and then reach back? Cool. So with do you want to handle that first? Because I got my stuff.
No, I want to throw it to the expert.
Okay. So here, I've called that before in lots of the spouse factor. It's a buying committee. There's somebody else. And you say, okay, cool. So who are you going to be talking with? And what do you think they're going to say? What kind of questions do you think they're going to have? I never want my sale to be in the hands of somebody else. If I am not able to get a meeting with that other person, then I am going to instantly train the person I'm talking to how to sell it. In order to do that, first I have to know, do they want to? I need to know how committed they are to taking action on this, and how willing they are to have that conversation, and how capable they are of having that conversation. So what do you think that conversation is going to look like? I used to work at a college dealing with 18, 19-year-old kids. And I'm like, so what do you think your mom and dad's going to say? What would you say if they said this? If I send them home like a lamb to the slaughter, I'm like, I need to train them instantly how to deal with this. And you know what? I think your parents are going to say this. Does that sound right? How supportive? What have you guys talked about? I need to know what that's going to look like. The buying committee is important, and especially the bigger kind of companies you work with. So we want to know who you're dealing with, what are they going to say, what are you going to say, how are you going to do that, what do you need? Okay, cool. Why don't we put something together right now, and I'm going to send you some stuff and you can share that with them. One of the things we've not talked about today is the idea of conceptual agreement and priming and frameworks. So say, okay, well, it sounds like this is what's happening. If I showed you something like this, how do you think that would go? I would send then like a sort of like a proposal, like in a proposal, in a sort of a summary, in a paraphrase. It sounds like you guys are dealing with this, and I talk about their company and what's going on, the wins, the opportunities. I put that in there. I'd send that to them and say, hey, feel free to send this to the people you're talking to. Now it's back in my hands, and I'm going to ask questions and do things that the person I'm talking to might not be capable of answering. And hopefully that next level person is going to respond because I just nailed that message. That's my long answer, but that's the right answer.
Boom. That's an excellent answer.
Cool. Next one.
Glad I didn't even try.
What's that?
Glad I didn't even try.
Yeah, you would. I mean, you would have said the same thing. So these guys, let's do this. I'm going to go here. Oh, wrong one. But we've got a resource here, kind of put together about all this stuff that you guys can download. We're going to send to you. The other one is, oh, not this one, because I just built that. This one, Kendall crushed it with this. So we actually put market specific examples in this, and we're still working on this, and we're going to finalize it because we've got some other cool stuff we're building. So as a wealth advisor, so we're going to anticipate, prevent. They're going to have the no urgency, no need, pre-selling tools, financial planners, the framework, all this kind of stuff, adapting of this, no needs, no trust, use prevention techniques, and then objection responses for each market. If you deal with this, here's what you can do, right? Based on this same framework, no urgency, all this stuff. And then what do we got? And then psychology tips. So reducing resistance. So it's like example scenario, client hesitates to make investment changes. So it's completely natural to be cautious, right? As a response. But what we're going to be building as well is in this is some preemptive, preemptive stuff. So that we say, hey, this is typically the stuff you guys are going to deal with when you're dealing with somebody like this. Here's what you need to build in your conversation early so that you prevent that from happening, right? So we want it. So what you're going to do, there's some worksheets that you're going to be able to get, defining those objections, upselling, cross-selling, dealing with those ones, psychology tips, prevention techniques. We're going to do all of that for you. We're building some more stuff, but that's really cool. And Kendall, you killed it with this document.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
Team effort, though. I'm not going to take all the credit.
Team. All right. So the other thing we're doing, maybe Kendall, you want to talk about this because I need some water.
Yeah, excellent. So the ISPA, we have tools, resources, insights, playbooks for growing your advisory practice. Currently, we have 3 key products, or I guess tools: Certified Succession Planner, which is education and training on the key areas impacting business success, valuation, and transition. We have a succession planning assessment, which is a diagnostic tool on steroids that essentially helps you identify key issues impacting the business owner's financial management, strategic, family dynamic environment as it pertains to their long-term goals. And then we have SNAP resources, which is all around marketing tools, sales, coaching, and implementation. And what we're doing is we're going to be creating a fast action program where you can essentially use these tools and resources to begin to create action and drive value in your practice within a week or 2. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a highly integrated program with basically a 30-day, 90-day action plan for you to immediately integrate all these tools and resources for you to then begin to immediately generate existing consulting revenue and add value to your clients. This is something we're hoping to have, or we will have within the next 3 weeks available. Yeah,
I think we're going to probably do a webinar on it. The next webinar is probably going to be about it. And then should have that ready to be able to go into. And it's something that our members will be able to access. I want to just add, one of the reasons that we looked at this is, part of ISPA that I think is so cool, why I'm really attached to it, is the ability to sort of pivot and really think about exactly what we're talking about today, what you guys need as members, what is going to help you win, how quickly, not just what makes us sound smart, right? Often, even if I'm on a stage speaking, I have to ask myself, is this for me? Is this for them? right? If people are just like, hey, good for you, that's not going to help them, right? I know what I'm talking about, but we want to think. So, we realize that as a like if somebody's going to invest in training, that's one thing, but that feels intimidating and overwhelming because now I got to do training, then I got to do this, then I got to apply it. Oh man, I got to really think through, is this a good decision for my business and in my life? Because training and education is a choice. It's always valuable, but I have to decide if this is the right thing. So, and every member that we've talked to, we've been helping actually behind the scenes, a couple members really drive their business. And this is the stuff that's making the impact for them. The education, the knowledge is always good, but how do we take what they're doing, their transferable skills, where they want to go, and help them as quickly as possible implement and start to get results? Results will always motivate you to do more. And so when we looked at this, instead of running things in sequence, we said, why don't we run it in parallel? Just like you asked, why would I do this? And then this, and then this. If there's a way to do it the right way and have, like we call it, the earn while you learn program, then all of a sudden now you go, I'm going to try this. The education becomes more valuable because you're actually, a real client has a question. You go, I got to go find out. And now you're learning all this stuff well in really applied ways. And so as we talk to employers, we talk to members, we talk to, potential customers, and even just clients that we have, they all said, yeah, you know what? That feels different. So rather than a training initiative as a company, this is a new product you can launch and you can train while you're doing it and make money. And then, of course, as our side of the business, the more that we can help you win, the easier it is to justify spending, right? So it's a good win for everybody. And I think this is really exciting what we're doing. I think I got this ready to go link. Boom, right there. I've already got. So, we're not going to show it just yet, but we've got, the 30-day plan, calendars built in. We've got project plans. We've got all sorts of stuff that we can do that's going to help you make things happen. And I think that's, yeah. And then, of course, ISPA.